Hello all to the members of SUGChennai. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I welcome you all to the webinar on From JSS to Content SDK, Modernizing XM Cloud Development with Next.js App Router with our guest speaker, Kamatchi Manoharan, who is a technical architect at Infosys. I thank you all for joining in this exciting webinar, and I thank Kamatchi for accepting to share her expertise and taking time out of her busy schedule. Kamatchi, the stage is all yours.
Yeah, thank you, SUGChennai team, and I would like to thank the audience for joining the session.
Yep. Thank you.
Let's started with the topic. Yeah, hope my screen is up. Let's get started. So the today's topic is more towards the transition from JavaScript Sitecore services to Content SDK, modernizing XM Cloud development with Next.js App Router, which is an evolving transition on the modern front-end frameworks. So the more agenda points for today will be understanding the strategic focus on the shift from JSS towards current SDK. And let's have a quick demonstration on how to set it up with the local on using current SDK and connect with the XM Cloud Sitecore application. And we will have a quick demo with component development with Content SDK, how the workflow remains intact between JSS and current SDK. What are the technical nuances and the runtime engine framework changes with the current SDK? That is also something we will deep dive in. And how the hydration differences constitutes on different rendering stages with app router. That is something we will see with real world examples. And finally, we will go for key takeaways. So initially, to get started with JSS, JSS have been evolved with a headless transition. You all have been aware that monolithic to headless transition has been evolved with the JavaScript Sitecore Services framework. With that, it offered a local development with disconnected mode where the front-end application can be independently developed and it can be hosted on a separate hosting server, which is no server based on hosting platform, something similar to Vercel. We can call it as rendering hosting cycle running, right? So now what is new with the Content SDK when we have JavaScript services as a framework? So it is more focused towards XM Cloud and it is evolving along with the modern front-end framework like Meta framework, what is going to provide the server-side rendering with Next.js kind of frameworks, right? And it is not a reinvention of development workflow. Development workflow remains same, but it is more on a technical transformation. And what will be the strategic outcome? It is the JavaScript microservices was more coupled with React layer, and that will be completely decoupled with the SDK. And it is more of a future-proofing platform and with complete focus towards XM Cloud. If headless application needs to be developed, our head application has to be evolved, JavaScript microservices needs to be used for XP and XM action products. But for XM Cloud and SDK needs to be leveraged. So with this, it is a kind of strategic signal to bring in more agility towards XM Cloud and to bring the time to market solutions on modern frameworks. The SDK has been introduced. This is the high level understanding on the focus towards Content SDK. So here, let us see what is the high level difference, right? Sitecore layout service is more tightly coupled with the JavaScript Sitecore services, that is JSS. because the React layer is tightly coupled with JSS. But here in Content SDK world, you have XM Cloud API, which constitutes of layout services, GraphQL, dictionary services. All these combined together will be called as XM Cloud APIs, or we can call it as Sitecore APIs. And those APIs are not directly coupled with the React layer or JSS layer. Right here, the JSS has been moved out and Content SDK has been brought up. Content SDK will be a normalization layer which will aid the React layer. So the ready-made articulated response structure will be derived with Content SDK and it will be fed to your React layer. So this way, JavaScript services for Sitecore exposes raw Sitecore layouts to your React app, but Content SDK hides complete Sitecore and it exposes only the content, which is the whole purpose of CMS platform, right? To deliver the content. So here we will see how this decoupling has been implemented as well. Okay. So we will see this is the Client SDK boilerplate which has been offered. Similar to JSS, we are having the boilerplate provided as a XM Cloud starter kit. Here we can see there are different examples provided. I'll just set this application here. Here you can see this is state bar sample we all would have been familiar. And the app router has multi-site setup with a boilerplate, and you can see the page to JSS, which will be routed for every of your page rendering. Here you can see if the draft is enabled, here it is calling out get preview method, and this is calling out get page method. So which is for the content delivery for your website. Okay. Here this has been derived from the client, and this client is from your Content SDK. So the Content SDK is an open source. It is available as an open source GitHub offering. Here you can see when we check this. So here this is the get preview method. You can see this is the editing service which is fetching editing data along with your layout service. So it fetches the details and content for your page builder, and it is massaging the content, whatever is exactly required to build the page builder. Okay. Here we can see further that page get page, okay, so which is used for your content data. Here this is fetching the layout service, purely the content. So how this is differentiating, okay? So all these data massaging has been executed with Content SDK, so that there is an intermediate layer, right? Rather in the earlier world, the JavaScript layout service will be directly exposed to your React. React will articulate all these massaging methods. That is something we can deep dive in. Here you can see a difference, right? So when we deal with the front-end application, this is the headless one. Front-end application will be called as head application. So there will be two components we will be talking about. Always the content will be delivered for website and the content will be delivered for page builder, which is nothing but what you see is what you get editor, which will provide the experience editing capability, which is one of the key feature of any CMS product. So that was the case for Sitecore. And we are calling experience editor as page builder in XML. So to get this page builder capability, the layout service should have what kind of editable field it should be. So that kind of structure will be delivered. If we look at this, this is the layout service, which is if it is rendered with normal mode, that is the file string parameter is normal, you will get the crux of the content with the values. But if it is rendered with edit tool, here every field will have additional field which is having editor. So when the page builder is rendered, here you can see this is the page builder where you are having the inline editing capability, right? When the page builder is being requested, right, for the layout service, the JavaScript microservices, that is JSS, will articulate this query string, and this will provide this kind of structure. And the React layer will hydrate with this values, this editable values, and it offers the editing capabilities. So to accomplish this kind of editing capability, always we require to wrap the components with JSS fields. So I can show you that. Here, this is the JSS field. So when you build the component, if you wrap JSS field, JSS image, JSS rich text, that will bind your field with the editable field, and you will get this kind of experience editing. For any case, I just want to deliver my content for my website. I don't want editing capability. Then we can start leveraging without JSS layer, but it will break certain features because, say, for example, the structure of your field will be needs to be iterative. It will not be ready-made values. Right? Say, for example, here the value is text, then it is fine. It is straightforward value. If it will be a link or any other complex data types, then it will have a hierarchical values like href, title, etc. So that needs to be processed by React layer with JSS, then only it will work. So that's why it will break if we are not leveraging JSS. But in the world of Content SDK, that was not the case. We can directly leverage the fields, right? Okay. Because it is going to provide you the direct layer because the data massaging and the content massaging has been taken care at the Content SDK level. It will be normalized. And so you need not to wrap this Content SDK fields. But if for any CMS, experience editing capability is the key feature. So if page builder is required to be compatible with, then Content SDK fields needs to be wrapped up to get the page builder capability. So what was that? We will quickly see that. So these are the Content SDK fields offered by the Content SDK library. So you can see that every field has been wrapped with the Content SDK. Right? So that way you will get experience editing capability. Now going to dive into the response structure here. Further, what additional feature the Content SDK provides in the backend. But from development standpoint, the approach and workflow remains same. Okay? Here you can see, if we see the layout service output, we can see the placeholder reference, and the JSS layer has to iterate through the children of this placeholder and identify and build the complete rendering component and its tree values with the data source, etc. But in the Content SDK world, you will have everything flattened, right? Normalized data output will be ready-madely available for React Native. Here, this value is ready-made and this will be directly bound with the React layer. That way, the additional cost for the React layer has been reduced. Like with this, I will just pause here for any questions.
Okay, no questions.
Yeah, good. Then I'll quickly get into the demo. This is the Sitecore documentation provided for Content SDK. Okay. So these are the prerequisites. It requires Node.js, and we just have to own the repository. Visual Studio Code has to be set up, and then we're all set to develop your front-end components. So let us go through this. Here, this is the starter kit provided Sitecore. Once you have this clone, right? This is the skate park application. It has been already created and set up for the XM Cloud world. Like you all would have been aware how to create the project. And if we leverage the boilerplate provided by Sitecore XM Cloud Foundation template, then if we use that, say for example, here when you click on create project, you need to provide the source control repository reference. With the skate park boilerplate, it will generate the project and you will have that ready and set up your example. Okay. So after that, you need to start developing the components, right? Then at that moment, we will start downloading the report that is the boilerplate to our local. And then we just have to connect with the credentials with the XM Cloud application to get the content delivered from Sitecore. Okay, that's what is the process we are walking through now. So that is something we can do with Content SDK. Okay. So this application has been set up with a boilerplate, and once that is done, get the credentials from deploy app from developer settings, then configure that the developer credentials where you can get it from the developer settings, and then go to your local application and configure it, not environment. Right? These steps would have been made actually here with or local environment file can be set up with environment of that is set up. Configure the API keys, connect with the same cloud, and get started with the install. Install and application is getting started. Similar to JSS, CLI needs to be installed. Similarly, for Content SDK, CLI needs to be installed. Once that is done, it started from here. The application type the work on. It and you are having in your local, you are entering the company page, which is delivered from SimCloud and it has been massaged with Content SDK. Now, you will have seen why everyone is going to be page. Just one of the page. So right away, you can start developing a component with a boilerplate setup for your local. A simple configurations now in your environment. Right? So now, step on how to develop a component. We develop a component of Content SDK as well with a similar flow of JavaScript services. Aside for the different JSS. So just to create the SXA component, I've already created a component. Just getting the data source here.
Uh, Kamakshi, I think your voice is not clear. Can you speak a little bit louder?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Is it better now?
Thank you. Yeah, it's better now.
Okay. So here, so the data source for Sitecore data source has been set up, and now navigate to the boilerplate. Follow similar workflow development workflow setup that for JSS, how we will leverage the JSS scaffold command. Similarly, for Content SDK also, it needs to be leveraged with the Sitecore tools scaffold command and build your component on your local setup. That is the front-end application for developer, and it will provide you the component created. That is the Next.js component created, the SDK connected. Now just go ahead and start building your component. So you will see after this sample demo component has been set up. Execute the npm run dev. So here in the existing page, attach the component or you can sample demo with the data source. The sample demo is in distribution. Now over here, population. Enter the fields from local. Input and mark. It with the sample demo component and the sample demo component added to the presentation layer of about this page, Sitecore and the CLI standard reflecting in your global set. Okay, so the crux of this complete demonstration is the development workflow remains same between JSS and Content SDK. Only the processing of the framework has been changed to align with the evolution of modern JavaScript frameworks. That is the Next.js. Any questions with this?
Anyone have any questions? Okay, no questions. I think you can proceed.
Yeah. So moving on to next stage, right? So that the app router, so the official communication from Sitecore is to align with the evolution of Next.js framework. The app router technique has been implemented with the Content SDK framework. Okay. So what is this app router? How it has evolved from different stages of rendering flows of this front-end framework, right? The front-end framework have evolved with the traditional page-based rendering, which we used to follow for Sitecore MVC, that is server-side rendering, right? And that has been evolved with the SPA, single-page application, where you will have your initial HTML shell loaded to your browser and along with the JavaScript implementation. So in the form of bundling and all those. Then the data and content will be loaded through API calls in an asynchronous manner. Okay, so this has certain limitations because it is not having server-side rendering. It has limitations on SEO factors, etc. That is where the meta frameworks like Next.js have been evolved. React.js is a CSR framework, and Next.js is a meta framework, and equivalent to every CSR rendering, there is a meta framework. Okay. Say for example, for AngularJS, we have Angular Universal, etc. Right? So Next.js have come up with the pages router with server-side rendering, where this will hydrate, the React layer will be hydrated. okay, with the server-side properties. Say, for example, it will hydrate the complete DOM tree. Okay, so that is how it has been. So, and it has certain cost involved at the React layer. So to overcome that particular limitation, Next.js has come up with the app routing technique. So app router technique, what it will do is, it will do hydration, meaning the React needs to do hydration only for the essential components. Say, for example, if I have 100 elements in a DOM structure, right? It need not to hydrate for the complete tree structure. It need to hydrate only for the necessary components. So that kind of nested layout technique has been introduced with the app router, and that is something we will see how this flow has been changed between JSS and Content SDK. Okay. So the Sitecore layout service will reach the node server, and the pages router will have your raw JSON, and that will be directly handed over to React layer. React will hydrate the complete page. The browser will render. Okay. But in app router world, articulated data will be provided to Content SDK. Content SDK will normalize the data, that is the content, and then the app router will render the server side components. The components will be ready, and then that will be handed over to React. React will hydrate only for the necessary stages or events or components. That is something we will see with the real-time example. Okay. Then the browser will render. So this kind of app routing technique has been evolved with all these meta frameworks like Next.js, Angular, Universal, etc. Okay. So this is more of a deep dive in stages, how this hydration is happening. I will straightforwardly get into a real-time example so that will be easy. Okay. Say, for example, we have banner component, form component, and helpful links. In the page router world, any banner will have title, image, description, right? So this is having static text, and the image is also static. So the page router will hydrate every time there is a kind of event happening. It will hydrate the complete component every time. In case of form as well and helpful links, page router will hydrate the complete DOM structure. But in the world of app router, it will hydrate only the interactive part. Say, for example, if your image and text is static in nature, that will remain server render. That is, here, for this app router will articulate the component, and that will be directly rendered by React layer. Need not to hydrate every time. Okay. Say, for example, if you have button, the button is having a interactive component. In this form component, you have button element as an interactive component. The button will be hydrating every time when there is an event happening from browser. The rest of the static components will remain server-side render. The component articulated and delivered by Node.js, that will remain, and simply re-rendered by React layer. Okay. Here, for helpful links, say you have carousel component, which is a helpful link. Icon and link remain static, so that those components will remain static. And the carousel events, scrolling, and all those kind of events will be hydrated for every. So this is how the cost efficiency have been brought up for your React layer. That will be having a conversion value for user experience. Okay. So we are about to get into a end of the session. So to overall consolidate the key takeaways for the session, right? Content SDK is going to provide you the normalized data, which will be ready to consumption data, that is the content, right? So React can readily consume the content delivered by Content SDK, unlike a JSS world. The renderer will be receiving a complete ready-made structure without it need not to process further and iterate for articulating its DOM structure. Okay. And this is built, the Content SDK has been built for the app router era, which is a seamless modernizing technique which has been used in all the meta frameworks like Next.js. So finally, the app router will be aligning with the SaaS first vision. So Content SDK is embodying this Sitecore SaaS first vision, which is XM Cloud, right? So that way it is providing a efficient processing framework for your front end application, that is head application. So we are coming to end of the session. So please let me know if there are any open further questions. You can reach out to me to LinkedIn if you have any further details required with respect to Content SDK. I'm happy to share the details. Yeah, thank you. Over to you.
I think we have a question from Rajashekar.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rajashekar.
Yeah. Thank you, team. Yeah, thank you for detailed session, Kamakshi. So I have one doubt on that's app router. In app router world, right? You mentioned that framework will define that, will drill down only the specified section to load that section. So how do we need to do any configuration of that? Yeah, go back to slide number 13. Yeah. So no,
Yeah.
slide number 13, not 13. Yeah, little bit go up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For your question, the answer is no, because the boilerplate, what has been provided by Sitecore, it is having everything ready-made. Here, if you look at it, yeah, you want to continue with your question? Is that the question?
No, no,
Is there any
I think
configuration needs to be taken?
yeah. Is there any configuration to mention that app router to go with the load the load the specific component
Okay.
such a way?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I
The
was.
answer is no, actually. If you look at this boilerplate, I would request the Sitecore community to look at this boilerplate. This boilerplate is having more details. Say, for example, you can see this is so freedom for any head application, right? So Sitecore is having the whole with headless solution. So the as of content delivery, the part of CMS is done. So now, how you want to articulate your head application? That is the front end application. The architectural decision is with the integrator. So you can have your head application as a single page application. You can have your head application as pages router or with app router. The boilerplate for all these has been provided in the starter kit. Okay. But if you want to leverage the app router starter kit, you can take this boilerplate and you can continue with your development. If you want to go with pages router, you can continue with that. Okay. However, the design decision will be accordingly, this can be taken forward. But say, for example, how this boilerplate has been articulated, you can see this difference here. Here, if you see, even along with that, there is one more feature has been brought up with Content SDK. That's something I would like to. I'm considering this as an opportunity to highlight that multi-site setup, right? In the world of page router, for multi-site setup, this needs to be wired up by the integrator. That is, like, so whoever is building the head application, that particular stakeholder has to take up with the articulation of multi-site in the world of pages router. But with the app router, you will have that multi-site setup ready-made provided in this boilerplate. You can have this site configuration and then you can start rendering multiple sites at the website. Okay. This doesn't require any configuration. This boilerplate will suffice.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I'm quite new to XM with the Next.js because I
Okay.
have experience in React JS things. But yeah, let me explore and if anything, I'll pinch you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajashekar. Any other questions from anyone? Okay, I think we don't have any more questions. Okay, I thank all the participants who attended this session and asked great questions to make this session lively. And I also thank our guest speaker Kamatchi for the great session on from JSS to Content SDK, modernizing XM Cloud development with Next.js app router. Okay. Thank you all and have a nice day and rest of the evening.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, team.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.